Yes, hello guys. I talked about Chaucer's poetic career in detail in the previous lectures. In this lecture, I will tell you the importance of English period in his life. Because for us, his English period is very important. Because we are going to study Chaucer's prologue to the Canterbury Tales very soon. So in the English period, Chaucer tried to elevate English language as a literary language. And he wrote his masterpiece, the Canterbury Tales, in this period. The Canterbury Tales is a collection of stories preceded by a prologue. So there is a prologue first of all, and then there are different stories. Written both to give his country a literature of its own and to give his countrymen a book that was mirror of England, a book in which they could really recognize themselves. Before Chaucer, they wrote books translated either or in the original French or Latin, but Chaucer popularized English language. Chaucer gives a perfect picture of the English society of his time in his Canterbury Tales. The work is unfinished. Of the 120 stories, only 24 are extant available. The occasion that he chooses was the traditional pilgrimage to Canterbury, where there was the shrine of a saint martyr. He was a martyr also, Thomas à Becket, who was a bishop of Canterbury who had been murdered in his Canterbury Cathedral by four knights sent by the King Henry II. T.S. Eliot's historical verse play Murder in the Cathedral. You must have heard the name of this work by this poem by T.S. Eliot. You know, he deals with this subject. Chaucer's pilgrims are going there to beseech his protection from the plague that was devastating the country, Black Death. So this plague caused havoc in England during Chaucer's time, and pilgrims went there for the protection from the saint. Both religious and recreational events undertaken by people belonging to different social classes have been depicted in this work. These activities took place every year in spring. Which activities? Pilgrimage to different places. Even you must have seen pilgrimages in India. People go to different places and they crack jokes, they write stories to pass their times. Chaucer's pilgrims, let's talk about Chaucer's pilgrims. The 29 pilgrims stop at the Tabard Inn in Southwark. Chaucer is in the inn too. He makes friends with them, and as they have the same destination, he decides to join them. The host proposes that to pass their time, they may have a storytelling competition. Each of them would tell 2 stories on the way to and 2 on the way back. That means each of the pilgrim will narrate 4 stories during their pilgrimage. The winner of the best tale will have a free supper on the return to London. So we can see that this is a witty background. Witty stories are going to be narrated by different pilgrims to pass their times. The book is divided into a prologue in which the characters are introduced and described, and the set of stories, the remaining part is a set of stories. The prologue starts describing spring, the season when the pilgrimage begins, the best season for the pilgrimages, and then describing pilgrims. All classes have representatives except the noble class, who did not like to mix with other people. They went on pilgrimage on their own. And the peasants. They also have not been represented in this poem because they were busy with their fields and their work in the fields. So, because they could not afford pilgrimages, because they didn't have the money. The pilgrims belonged to the feudal world, which is represented by the knight, the squire, the yeoman. Some pilgrims are associated with the church, which is represented by the prioress, by the nun, by the monk, by the friar, by the parson. Some other pilgrims come from mercantile and you can say professional middle class, which is represented by the lawyer, the physician, the merchant, the wife of Bath, the student, and so on and so forth. They are presented in order of social importance. First, the members of the orders of chivalry, the knight. Then one of the religious orders, the members, and then the members of the rising middle class. And lastly, the lowest members of the society, who I will tell about them later on. Chaucer describes them, giving us details about their behavior along the road, their private life, their habits, their character, and of course their social standing, and their clothes too, their tools, and even the kind of horse they ride. Many of them are often described morally too, and the reader comes to know their qualities and weaknesses. They are ironically depicted with a fault, with humorous tolerance. He doesn't criticize if there is some fault in somebody's character. There is humorous tolerance, witty, style. His tone is uncritical, sometimes comic, but never offensive. Chaucer respects virtues and attacks vices with sharp irony. Sometimes he makes fun of them and uses irony, but only to point out their human weaknesses. Weaknesses, to err is human, to forgive divine. So if there is an error, if there is some weakness, he forgives them. He treats religious figures satirically in order to make an indirect criticism of the corruption of the church of his own time. The range of tales which follows the prologue is very wide. All types of medieval stories have been included in this chain of tales. It is considered a remarkable anthology. The Canterbury Tales is considered as a remarkable anthology of medieval literature. It goes from a classical subject to a religious one, from the courtly romances to the dirty stories with unfaithful wives and betrayed husbands. So we should never get hurt by these dirty tales, but this is a humorous way to depict the contemporary English society and to show the weaknesses of the people. It deals with themes like love, marriage, corruption, hypocrisy, and chivalry. The tales in the Canterbury Tales are structured as a series of interlinked stories. They are linked, like in our Panchtantra and Hitopadesh, they are interlinked to each other. They are linked to one another by the fact that they are told by pilgrims on the way to Canterbury. Most of the individual tales have a prologue and an epilogue. Epilogue comes at the end of a story. The prologue links the teller's tale to the previous one, to the previous story told by the previous narrator, and contains the theme of the tale and the teller's point of view. The epilogue helps the narrative to the introduction of the next tale. In this way, the tales are weaved in a unified structure.